Hello, and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in business and in life and simplify them. And friends, if I haven't said it enough times, Happy New Year. My goodness, 2021 has already gone out full guns a-blazing, literally, crazy. And here we are. Now, I wanted to take a different angle today in our conversations. All month long, we've been talking about writing, whether writing a memoir, writing a nonfiction book, writing a compelling keynote speech, and that's all well and good. But now I actually want to bring it a little bit more internal. I want to talk about well-being, self-care, stress management, all of that stuff. Like how we can actually, not like talk about it and never do it, but actually implement becoming the CEO of our own well-being. So my special guest today, her name is Naz Beheshti, and she is the author of Pause, Breathe, Choose, Becoming the CEO of Your Well-Being. Now, she's an executive wellness coach, a speaker, a Forbes contributor, a thought leader, CEO, and the founder of Naz, a corporate wellness company improving leadership effectiveness, employee engagement, and well-being. She's got clients like Nike, JP Morgan Chase, Omega Institute, Columbia University, and more. She also co-founded Rise to Shine, a nonprofit helping to alleviate the suffering of young children in Haiti. So I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, Naz Beheshti. Hey, Naz, how's it going?
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, Mary.
I'm glad that you're here. And it has been a crazy 4 weeks. I mean, in
Absolutely.
the U.S. and beyond. In the U.K., there is pretty strict lockdowns going in place for the pandemic. All things that are happening in big whirling cyclones, it seems like sometimes. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's very easy for a lot of us to get caught up into it, in the overwhelm, in the pressure cooker of life. But I actually want to start is talking about your backstory a little bit, like how you came to write this book. And a little known fact, you worked with Steve Jobs very early on in your career. So what was that like, working with him and being in the pressure cooker of Silicon Valley?
Well, working for Steve was definitely quite an experience. I mean, just to say the least, he was an amazing man. I really feel fortunate to have been alongside of him as my first job out of college.
Wow.
So, you know, I was able to see firsthand what it truly was like to be the CEO of a very successful company and the CEO of your well-being. Now, at that time in my early 20s, I wasn't thinking in the terms of CEO of your well-being. This all came, you know, more recently in hindsight, looking back. But, you know, I can honestly say that with conviction that, you know, Steve's vision and his focus and determination and innovation would not be sustainable without his commitment to his overall well-being. So that was something I learned right away, just firsthand, that you really need to be well in order to do well. And really to simplify for the Simplifiers podcast, I learned working for Steve Jobs that well-being and success are basically, they're interconnected. They're synonymous. Right. So in order to be well, in order to do well, you need to be well.
So you were in a support position for him. Were you an executive assistant? Is that right?
Yeah. Right.
And while you were working there, you shared this in the book. It's like you saw how much he valued his own well-being. But in the support system, you were working like crazy. Were you taking good care of yourself?
No, not at all.
Isn't that the case?
Actually, the day I started on January 5th, 2000 was the day Steve was at Macworld and he officially dropped his I for interim CEO. And that was not knowingly at the time when I also dropped the I for myself because all my priorities became Steve. And, you know, I was young and healthy, so I was able to sustain the pressure cooker and not taking care of myself for a while. I'm not condoning that, and I don't think that's healthy in any way, but I was young and not aware at that time. And now looking back and, working with executives and companies and employees to help them manage their stress and build resilience so that they can perform at the top of their game, I now know that I was really stressed out, on the verge, if not, in experiencing burnout while I was working at Apple. So definitely was a lot of pressure. But I think because of my age and some resilience there, it helped me. But I don't think at this time my body and mind would be so forgiving. To be honest.
I think most of us that are listening to this episode right now can probably raise their hand and say, I've been in a support position like that before where I gave it whatever it takes, right? Mm-hmm. And I believed and trusted in the visionary that I was working for or working with. But at what cost? We all have had stories. And that's the thing about when you're in your early 20s, you do think you're invincible. You're just like, I can work off of 5 hours of sleep a night. I can just go. And it's, totally fine. And you supplement with more coffee or worse energy drinks or other things. And it becomes a cyclical cycle. And without a doubt, it does come to a crashing halt later on. Your physical body cannot keep that pace. Your spiritual, your emotional body cannot also keep that pace either. Yeah.
Right.
So what I'm curious about is what were some of the habits that you noticed Steve inject into his daily work life, or things that you really go, that is interesting. You're doing things very differently than the other people I'm running into who are totally burnt out.
Well, it comes back to the basics of self-care and taking care of yourself and prioritizing that. And, the one thing that Steve had, regularly was a meditation practice, which back then it wasn't as mainstream as it is now, and so that was very forward thinking in terms of, having a consistent practice, doing it and knowing and experiencing the benefits, so he had a daily meditation practice. He ate really healthy, ultra healthy, so that he could sustain his focus throughout the day, right? So some people go out and have big lunches and get heavy and lethargic and, their mind isn't as focused and clear, and they get tired and heavy, and so it's harder to work. He also worked out several times a week, with his personal trainer. So all these things to take care of yourself obviously helps your energy levels and the clarity of your mind so that you could think and function properly. And so these days, people know that taking care of yourself and self-care is important, but does everyone actually do it? They typically sacrifice their self-care in order to, again, do well rather than be well. And they prioritize that over taking care of themselves.
I see it time and time again with my clients, and I'll be the first to admit myself, I forget like a little goldfish in the little pond. I have an 8-second memory, and then I do something that is completely not aligned with my core values or what I believe is a joy-filled life. And we make those mistakes, and then it sends us down a trajectory where we're making poor choices that ripple out and affect other choices. So as you say, you hit that big carb lunch because you're craving pastas or whatever, because it gives you some nostalgia, emotional feeling from your childhood or wherever, which then leaves you totally drained come 1 o'clock. You've got a big meeting at 2 and you can't make decisions, or you make poor decisions that ripple out from there, right?
Right. Or also a lot of my clients sacrifice their sleep for one thing. Yes. And that is really takes a toll on your body and your mind, because that's really time to reboot and re-energize every night. And if you're not doing that, how can you actually perform the next day and function properly? So sleep's another thing that goes by the wayside often.
And it's a vicious cycle too, because I think a lot of people, when they get more clients or, their business is booming, they go, gosh, well, how am I going to fit all of this into my day? I'll wait till the baby's asleep and then I'll go back to work from 9 to 1 o'clock in the morning. It's just not sustainable. And I think that that's what's really interesting. If Steve and you can teach us things here, is that when we prioritize self-care as that'd be nice, but to a priority, a must-have, in order to function, make good decisions, be a great business owner, live a joy-filled whole life. These are not that's kind of nice. It is at the very, very top of the list rather than at the very, very bottom, right?
Absolutely. It's not a I should do this, it's I must do this. Mm-hmm. So shifting that should to a must is a mindset shift, and it's just revaluing, reprioritizing your health, your greatest wealth, your well-being, but then also your business, whatever it is that you're doing professionally, impacts how you're feeling personally.
Yeah.
So they're all hand in hand. That's why when I say well-being drives success, I mean, it's all intricately connected. And so you really I can't stress enough how much you need to take care of yourself in order to function properly and do really well.
And I think we know that on a surface level, and it's really dropping it down on a cellular level so that we truly walk away from today's conversation and go, okay, what am I going to change today? What slight, teeny tiny shift am I going to make towards a more positive outcome in my well-being and beyond? So I'd like to take a moment actually right now, if you'll humor me, to read a bit from your book, because I think this sets it up very, very clearly in my mind. This is from the introduction. You can live your best life, but how? Our lives are marked by a singular focus on achievement. We're surrounded by a culture that puts unrelenting pressure on us, which can lead to chronic stress or even premature death. Due to the demands of the high-pressure environment, people often climb the career ladder through visible sacrifice. We measure how long we can go without sleep. We neglect our family and friends. We give up and devalue the crucial parts of our lives that make life worth living. We prioritize doing well over being well. But the truth is, we can have both. However, when we search outside of ourselves to attain happiness in people or places or things, we end up chasing a perpetually moving and elusive target. The real challenge lies, however, in accessing our true self, which is often buried deep beneath our stresses, distractions, and spinning wheels. I mean, you've pretty much summed up most of America right there. I mean, we were sold a bill of goods that not necessarily true of go after it and achieve your dreams, get your 2.5 kids and your picket fence and the corner office with the glass windows and all the things, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we're all realizing, even if you don't own your own business, you work for a big corporation, this is not sustainable. So talk us through a better way. The book's called Pause, Breathe, and Choose. Let's actually deep dive into all three sections. So where should we define, maybe let's set a starting point, like defining what mindfulness actually is in 2021, because like we're dealing with a pandemic. So how would you define mindfulness?
Right. Well, the practice of mindfulness really awakens your mind and your heart from autopilot. And it enables you to experience life unfolding in the present moment. Yeah. So often, especially amid a pandemic, we are thinking about, all the unknowns and the what ifs in the future, or what has already occurred in the past. It seems more and more that, it's rare to be present without judgment, with all the past and future thoughts. And I find that mindfulness really unlocks your ability to tap into your intuition and creativity so that you can receive new information with a beginner's mindset and be able to develop new perspectives with that beginner's mindset. So in short, mindfulness is presence of heart, unveiling your truest self and desires.
Yeah. So in that, though, what I hear, and we get so easily caught up in the stories of what's happened to us in the past. We anchor down our identity or our future success in that because we go, oh, well, this is what I've been through so far. This is who I am as a business owner, as a mom, as a woman, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then we also get stuck in the loop of the future, whether it's fear or anticipation of what's to come next, that it's so hard to actually be in the present. Well, how do we nudge ourselves back to the present?
Well, that's why I love Pause, Breathe, Choose, because it's just 3 words and it's a powerful method to take charge of your well-being. And it's so simple to remember. So like, when we have the foundation of mindfulness, we are mindful. That's the first step. You've got to have the foundation of mindfulness so that you're mindful to take that pause of that monkey mind that is trying to run this situation of the past or the future, or even in the present. You could get stuck in the monkey mind of the present. So you want to be able to like just take a step back and pause.
Yeah.
Pause. So then you're able to take a conscious breath. Just breathing consciously, even one breath, is like hitting the reset button and re-engaging with the present moment. So pause, breathe, and then when you are mindful in that present moment, you're able to choose more wisely and make a better choice. So essentially, the pause and breath better equips us to make a better choice. And then when we make mindful choices, instead of being on autopilot or making a bad choice, we're able to put pause, breathe, choose in action. Like it's basically pause, breathe, choose is mindfulness in action.
And I can see how this could relate to everyday things. Somebody cut you off in traffic, pause, breathe, don't flip them off, and then choose a better choice. Am I going to let this affect my morning, or am I going to let whatever person who is super stressed out and in a rush today just go on by? And
just brush it off, choose to let it go.
Right. Or in a business term, somebody says something that's a bit snarky in a meeting and it really triggered you. It really set you off. That pause, breathe, and choose methodology there. How do you imagine that scenario playing out?
Well, breathing calms you. So maybe it's not one breath. It's maybe taking that pause a little bit longer to really breathe and re-engage and just get back to your intention of like, I'm not going to choose to let this take over my day and have power over myself. I have the power. I am taking charge. I am the CEO of my well-being. So I'm going to continue breathing here. It's just like separating yourself, removing yourself from that situation to get back centered and calm within yourself. And rewiring your brain to not go into reactive mode and be more responsive and more responsible with your response rather than react unnecessarily. Yeah. And then not let it control you.
I think that's what's tricky about scenarios like either of those two is that initial kind of adrenaline rush of emotions that float up, of like that initial fast response of like wanting to flip somebody off or wanting to be snarky back or whatever. Do you think that that's a kind of a defense mechanism? Everybody's going to respond differently, but it's something that you have learned as learned behavior, right? At some point along the way, someone's modeled that. Maybe you were a kid in the backseat of your car and you saw how your mom responded to people cutting her off. What are your thoughts there? Because I think that that's an interesting place to ponder.
That's an excellent thing to ponder and question, because I used to be really more reactive than I am and more irritable and less patient.
Sure.
Now, my mindfulness practice has completely changed that for me. And within 3 weeks of being initiated in TM, Transcendental Meditation, my friends and family closest to me completely noticed a shift in me and said, you are different. What have you been doing? And of course, the closest, some people knew I started TM, but the ones who didn't were saw a noticeable shift in me. Right. And that shift made me more calm, present, engaged in the moment, and able to let things kind of brush off. I became more patient, right? Yeah. So if I were that person who, and I used to have road rage when I lived in San Francisco and drove everywhere. Now I'm in Manhattan. I walk everywhere, but I almost get run over all the time by crazy drivers, right? And instead of screaming at them, my meditation practice has trained me and helped me respond in a calmer way. It's just not worth it. My initial instinct is not to do that, whereas before it was. So meditation is kind of my medicine in that it's kind of cured me of those reactions. Now, I'm still not, like human. There's sometimes that, if I, I'm feeling off, or maybe I skip meditation one day, or, and it's, I end up reacting when I shouldn't have, but I'm not hard on myself for that reason, because I know that in the broader scale of things, in the broader scheme of the picture, that typically I'm more calm. And if I wasn't meditating, I would have flipped out or reacted.
Yeah. Well, it sounds
negatively.
to me, I mean, you have to create a channel by which, whether it is meditation or yoga or something else that helps you process this and start to build those new neural pathways in your brain so that you aren't reaching to old coping mechanisms or defense mechanisms that aren't serving you, that aren't working, because that's just going to piss you off, and then it's going to, ripple out and change all the things from later. So in that, then how do we make better choices? Specifically how, not only with our responses, but how that help us manage the stress that is going to happen in life. You talk about 3 different types of stress that are out there. Give us a little bit more there.
Yeah, so the part 2 of my book is all about the 7 strategies to help you make better choices that both upgrade your mindset and your behaviors, inevitably improving the inner peace that I was talking about and leading you toward a healthier and happier lifestyle. And within that, I explain my ACE method, which is a new way of reframing stress. And it's essentially an effective way, like I said, to upgrade both your mindset and your behavior, because you have the ability to distinguish between the different kinds of stress, which are acute, chronic, and eustress. So that's also stands for ACE. And when you're able to identify the first step of which type of stress you're experiencing, then you're it enables you to perceive stress as a challenge rather than an obstacle. So once you understand that type of stress, you can identify the actual stressors and their source, and then take empowered action.
Okay.
So you can embrace and harness a desirable stress, which is the eustress, and mitigate or avoid the dangerous stress, as we know, is chronic stress. The chronic stress is really the killer stress that could lead to premature death and is very dangerous.
So why don't we break that down? Let's simplify and give an example of each of the 3 types of stress. So let's start with acute, which you call necessary stress. Give me an example of that.
So acute stress is, when you're walking down the street and you encounter a speeding car coming right at you, and you jump out of the way. Your natural reaction is to jump out, the fight or flight state. And that helps you, because if you didn't have that acute stress, you would get hit and die or get injured. Now, the eustress is the stress that you feel like, before you're doing some kind of a competition, a race, or getting on stage and speaking, or doing something for work, that you kind of get nervous, but you could change that nervousness into like positive stress that enables you to give you energy to actually go and do your best. So it's like a positive stress.
Got it.
And then chronic stress is more of a sense of hopelessness and helplessness for a long duration of time, 6 months or more. So the dangerous thing about chronic stress is that some people may be experiencing stress, but then they slip into chronic stress, not realizing it has been 6 months or more, which makes a chronic stress. And that's just a feeling of hopelessness or helplessness, and not able to resolve issues that are ongoing.
And I think that is a self-fulfilling prophecy too with chronic stress. I mean, when you get in a situation where you feel like, well, I just need to power through, I just need to endure this. This is not ideal. I'm just going to go with it. And at some point, it does become this chronic stress in your life. But I tend to believe, and maybe people will challenge me and send me letters, and that's absolutely fine. I'd love to hear from listeners. But I mean, I tend to believe there's always a choice in whatever situation. You have a choice in how you perceive what's happening. You have a choice in the 1,000 daily choices you make in your day, like what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear, are you going to exercise, who are you going to talk to and not talk to today? What other advice would you give somebody who's stuck in kind of that martyrdom or feeling absolutely without any control in their situation, which are perpetuating that chronic stress?
Well, I always feel that even when you're stuck in a situation of negativity, some sort of something in that negativity or stress is serving that person in one way or another. Even really bad things like smokers who want to quit smoking. Smoking is terrible for your health, but yet that cigarette is serving that person in one way or another, as bad as it is. So even that stress could somehow, like you said, it's similar to like the self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, what would shift that is almost like what outweighs that self-fulfilling prophecy or feeling disempowered to feeling more empowered, like I'm sick of this, it's time to stop this, I need to get out of this rut. Like you said, there's always a choice.
Right.
And what we are feeling and thinking could be acute stress or eustress, which can be used to our advantage. But even when we're already experiencing that chronic stress and, feeling stuck and it's just not too late to ever change course and pivot if that's what you want, if that's what you're ready to do. Because some people aren't ready to do it, right? You have to be willing, ready, and able to do it. And everyone is.
That is such a critical piece, especially if anyone's been listening to past episodes on codependency or boundaries or things like that. This is so critical, Naz. I think you're onto something here, because what happens, especially for people pleasers out there that are listening, is that you see the other person suffering and you're like, I know what's going to fix them. I'm going to give them this book. I'm going to give them this solution. I'm going to put, because this thing helped me. But if the other person is not in a place spiritually, mentally, physically to actually do the change themselves, it's pointless, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the clients that come to me at the request of their boss, like the CEOs contact me and they're like, you need to coach my, CMO or CFO. And it's like, do they want to be coached? That's the first thing I ask. And if they say, well, they don't think they need to be coached, I said, I'm sorry, until they're ready to be coached, it's not a good fit because they're wasting their time. I'm wasting my time. I like to have successful clients, it's not going to be successful. So same thing with people who, are stuck in a rut. But, the other thing, again, going back to mindfulness, like having that mindfulness practice. I mean, there's times when I'm down and I'm, not in chronic stress, but it could lead to chronic stress if I'm not willing, able, and ready to get myself out of it, right? But there's times that I like something, doesn't go the way I had planned or I'm upset. And I literally, tell my husband or myself, like, I'm going to have a pity party right now for just a little bit. Like I'm going to, eat ice cream and do whatever I want to do tonight. Like just do what makes me, even if it's not the healthiest thing, do what makes me feel happy in that moment. But then I'm going to be done with it. Like I'm going to allow myself to feel it and have my own, whatever, pity party, whatever you want to call it. But then I get tired of it. It's like, okay, I'm done feeling disempowered and sorry for myself. For how long? And then I actually am ready to shift because that's not an empowering or fun state to be in. But sometimes it is. Sometimes it's like, no, I need to be here right now.
Yeah.
The dangerous part is being in that for too long, which turns into chronic stress.
So what I heard and what you said there, and which I think is absolutely brilliant, is actually putting a time on it, whether it's a deadline or a point in the map that just says, you know what, tonight is an F-it night. And maybe that is it within range. Obviously, you don't want to hurt yourself or other people. But putting a point in the timeline, if you will, I think it does give you a sense of like, okay, I've given space and I've acknowledged this thing that's happened, and I'm giving myself space to process how I feel and my emotions on it, and then choosing a different thought. Because if you get stuck in the sort of, oh, woe is me, life sucks, I can never get get out of this. It is a cyclical cycle there. I actually want to shift to a different thing that you said earlier before I forget to mention this. So you mentioned the concept of changing whatever thing that's happening to you, shifting it from an obstacle to a challenge. What I hear in that is kind of infusing a sense of play, right, into life itself, whatever stress you're having. Talk to me about play and recovery time.
Yeah, well, without play and recovery time, again, you're not optimizing your well-being, right? Because you need to sleep and reboot and re-energize all the cells in your body. Like I worked with Dr. Matthew Walker from UC Berkeley at the sleep lab. He's a scientist and researcher for sleep. And he says that the single most effective thing you could do for your body every day is get 8 hours of sleep. I mean, that is the most single. So if someone, on this listening in the Simplifiers podcast wants to take home one thing to like start being more healthy and to take care of themselves, get 8 hours of sleep, 7 to 8 hours of sleep. That is like the single most effective thing way you could reboot your mind, your brain cells, every cell in your body pretty much. Yeah. So that's a great way to, recover from all the daily stresses and reboot yourself and re-energize. And then the play part of it is another way of like switching from a hyperactive, like structured way, like goal-oriented way of living to a more like less structured and just playful, like creative way of being and fun, and that is really important just for your creativity to shine and to be revealed. And most importantly, it's fun to play. I mean, why we were all born to play. When we were kids, we played. Why, when we get older, we have to stop playing? I mean, there's some adults who are like, I'm never growing up. I will always play. That's a great attitude. There's some people who are like, no, I'm too old. I don't play anymore,
But I think that kind of brings to my mind, obviously in a pre-pandemic world, escape rooms or painting classes for adults. I mean, these are why these things exist, because it helps you tap into that inner child that just wants to explore and get her fingers dirty and paint and just have a little bit of a playtime. I 100% agree. And I think that's why a lot of parents with young children, go, oh yeah, this is actually fun. I do like going out in the snow and making snowmen. I do enjoy baking cupcakes or whatever it is, right? Kids remind us of that lost aspect of our self.
Yeah, and that's why it's so fun to play with kids, because you get on their level, right? Yeah. And everything kind of fades away, like work, all the other problems. You become very present, because kids aren't thinking about the past or the future. They're thinking about what they're playing with or doing in that moment. They are very, very present. And we could all learn from children and just go back to when we were children, I mean, mindfulness and presence has a lot to do with just being carefree and like a child, like what we once were, who we once were.
So let's shift gears again. In your book, you talk about like the 3 Ps to well-being. They're pain, prana, and purpose. Can you break those down? And actually, I want to take a deeper dive into prana in particular.
Okay. So prana is Sanskrit for breath and life force or life energy. Yeah. And this vital energy moves through everyone and everything, promoting healing. So there are times when prana can become blocked, and those blockages come from fears and fatigue, pain, uncertainties, and chronic stress. And those blockages prevent you from performing at your best and truly experiencing joy. Yeah. So on the flip side, when prana is flowing freely, you're energized and engaged and can make better choices. And essentially, the quality of your prana depends on the way you choose to live your life and the choices that you make, from lifestyle choices to mindset choices to everything.
So in prana, and I know in your book you have a couple of different breathwork techniques. Can we actually play around and try one right now? I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, but Ujjayi breath.
Ujjayi breath.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you lead us through that real quick just to see what it's like? And is there any disclaimers if they're pregnant women, maybe they shouldn't do this, but.
Yeah, no, that's for Kalabati. That's a different breath.
Okay, good.
Yeah, this one is really easy. So if most people have gone to a yoga class, for example, like Vinyasa yoga practices Ujjayi breath. So that's a very common way of breathing. So Ujjayi breath is similar to like the sound of Darth Vader. It's like this really intense sound that is comes from when you constrict your throat. So the easiest way I can explain to do this is when for people who wear glasses, or everyone has worn sunglasses, when you take off your glasses and want to clean them, you make the sound because you're fogging up to clean the glasses.
Yep.
So imagine doing that sound. So start doing this ha sound like that, like you're cleaning your glasses, and then close your mouth, but continue doing it. That's the way you restrict your voice. So take a deep inhale, and then do you hear that difference? It's like you're constricting your throat, and you just continue doing that with your mouth closed. So if you want, we can practice that together.
Yeah, let's do 3 together. So are they breathing in through their nose and then breathing out through their nose because your mouth is closed, right?
So essentially, I'm just showing you how to get the constricted voice or constricted throat sound, but the whole thing is done with your mouth closed.
Got it.
And so it's really coming, from your nose, in through your nose, out through your nose, but the sound and the constriction is through your throat.
Okay, yeah, let's try it. 3 breaths now, if you lead us through it.
Okay, let's first get the constriction, and then I'll let you go with once you get the constriction. So pretend you're cleaning your glasses and make the ha sound. Keep doing that. Close your mouth. Continue doing that. Inhale. Exhale, same. Through your throat. Inhale. Exhale. Continue the constriction in your throat. So you feel that in your throat, and it's a deep inhale from your lower abdomen. And this it really starts building internal heat and creating a sense of calm, yet energy at the same time, which is really great.
We do it in my online vinyasa class, and it is even 3 breaths of it. You start to feel a little bit like, whoo,
like almost lightheaded or something. Like just like there's so much oxygen because you're taking a deep, again, mindful breath. So it also applies to the pause, breathe, choose. You could do it in your breath after a pause.
Yeah. And you call it the victorious breath there. So it's just sort of remembering to breathe. And that's the part that I think is always so fascinating to me. I'm like, oh yeah, I was shallow breathing for the last God knows how many hours. We remember, oh yeah, breathing actually is a good thing. It does fulfill us and fill us up. These kinds of little things I think is really important. So
it truly is.
So moving on back to the other 2 P's, why is pain and purpose important in well-being?
Well, pain is, again, it's all about choice, right? We all go through pain in life, and we can choose to allow pain to be our greatest teacher for growth, or we can choose to allow pain to break us and put us in a very disempowered state. So it's really, again, up to you. And with pain, no one is here to judge your pain and tell you to, come on, get up and get over it. No, people go through pains of all sorts of, levels and depths. And so some pain may take, days, weeks, years, decades to get over, but it's about going through the phases, and the decades part, that's a bit extensive, but, a sense of loss, you're always going to have the pain for someone you lose, for example. That doesn't go away, but there's different levels of it, and there's way to shift the pain from a state of disempowerment, of like it's breaking you, it's weighing you down. It's not allowing you to function in everyday life.
Yeah.
To, I feel this pain. I accept this pain. I know this pain. I've lived with this pain for so long that I'm ready to like move to the next stage, whatever that stage is for you, because there's different levels and I put the different levels, and it's a non-linear phase. Like, I'm not here to tell you how to go through pain. There's different phases and everybody goes through them at different, times. And again, it's non-linear, and people can toggle back and forth between the different stages of like, denial, shock, guilt, acceptance, forgiveness, like all of those different levels. But in the end, it's about, what did I learn from this pain? How did I grow from this pain? And how can I, be better and evolve as a result of this pain?
And then, of course, purpose is having your compass set, knowing where you're headed and why your business or you are on the planet at this exact juncture in time, right?
Right. Yeah. And there's two types of purpose. I say on a macro level, it's exactly that. It's like the higher purpose of, how you choose to make impact in the world and help the world and yourself. And but then on the, not everybody knows that right away. It took me a long time to figure that out. Right. And so that's something like kind of a higher, commitment and like takes some time for some people to figure out their purpose. But then on a micro level, your purpose can be your daily intention of what you want to accomplish or what you intend to do. So you could break it down. It's like chunking down goals. It's like chunking down your purpose to that day's intent. And that's like an easier and more approachable, simplified version of your bigger purpose. Because when you live your daily purpose with intention, whatever that may be, small or large, then you're able to find that bigger purpose easier or maybe quicker, because you're living each day with some intention and purpose.
Yeah. And I really encourage you, if you're listening to this right now, take the time to just examine this, reassess and jump off the hamster wheel every quarter and just say, well, is this still aligned? Is my purpose still this? Is this what is lighting me up? Whether these types of work or this types of clients or otherwise things outside of work, because we change and we evolve and we grow as people. And, as you said earlier, painful things happen that change us and change our perspective on the world. But then also glorious, wonderful triumphs happen that change us and our perspective on the world as well. So I really encourage you guys, if you are interested in this stuff and you want to read a book that helps you map it out, because she's got this whole other thing called the MAP method that really helps you take charge of your well-being. And it's a framework that you can follow week to week to help you, again, feel empowered. That's the bottom line, is that there are places and ways and easy, simple shifts that can help you become the CEO of your well-being. You can find the link in the show notes. It's in the simplifierspodcast.com, as well as her website, nazbeheshti.com, and all of her social media links, so that if you want to get plugged in and connected to her, it's all there at the simplifierspodcast.com. So, Naz, I have a few questions as we wrap up that I like to ask everybody. And again, thank you so much for your time. I think you're whetting the appetite for a lot of people of thinking about things a little bit differently and actually taking action. And I think that's the real important bit there as well. So my next question is this. What's one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or poking holes and challenging your belief system?
I actually just recently downloaded Untamed by Glennon Doyle, is it? Right?
Yes.
Glennon Doyle. That, I just started it, but I am really fascinated and inspired by her, rawness, her vulnerability and courage. And I love that. It seems like a great book, and I can't wait to keep getting into it.
Oh, it's so good, you guys.
Have you read it?
It is so good, yes. What do they call it? The pink fluffy rabbits or pink fluffy bunnies. The things that we chase after as women that we have been either conditioned through our upbringing or otherwise. So you go, hang on, wait, is this still real? Is this still serving me? Is this still worthy of my time or energy or resources. Love it. Great book. So tell me, who's one person in your network, somebody you know personally, you just feel is up to brilliant things? We could shine a spotlight on them, and who knows, maybe one day we'll have them on the podcast.
Well, there's a lot of people. That's a hard question because there's so many wonderful people doing wonderful things that I know. But one person particularly, especially during COVID, who has helped me is Melissa Wood. She has an app, Melissa Wood Health, and she is just an amazingly inspiring, beautiful, energetic, and passionate woman who does workouts online through her app. And it's a combo between, it's low impact, but it's a very, very effective combination of Pilates and yoga.
Yeah.
And what's so special about it is, especially during the pandemic, the reason she's helped me so much is I never really do the apps or online stuff. I go to Equinox. I love my classes and the teachers. I like live settings and be, in a community with people. And I was never one to say, okay, I will, work out looking at my computer at home, roll out my mat and do it. No, but I had no choice. And when during the pandemic, what I missed most were my classes at Equinox. And so I had to, again, choose. Do I just sit there and say I'm not going to work out or figure out another way? So I started doing CrossFit classes with my husband, which, gosh, no, that was not for me. I couldn't walk for 3 days after one of the classes. And then I'd go out on walks. But then I found Melissa Wood. I was following her on Instagram. I had run into her and met her a few times. And I really love her, just her energy. She's really full of wonderful energy. And then her now be doing her app every day. It has really made a huge difference in my life. And what's great for busy professionals, especially, or, moms with kids, who don't have time to work out all the time. Melissa and I share the same philosophy that 5 minutes of movement is better than none. And her workouts range from 7 minutes to 50 minutes. So you could choose how long you want to work out, what body part you want to work out, full body or just arms. So you have the choice. I love choices. And you could choose what you want to do. You can work out anywhere, anytime.
Brilliant.
And I love it.
Yeah.
I love her and her workouts.
Well, we will link her up in the show notes. If people are curious about her app, you can check it out there at thesimplifierspodcast.com. So I believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me, what are you grateful for, today?
Every single day that I'm healthy, I'm grateful for my health and my well-being. I mean, in my book, and I wrote an entire book about your ultimate wealth is your well-being. Yeah. And so you can't, in my opinion, truly enjoy the quality of your life if you are not well. So every single day after my meditation, I have a gratitude practice and say that I am grateful for my well-being and the well-being of my loved ones, because that's the most important thing ever.
Brilliant. So again, the book's out now. Yeah, you can go to any of your bookstores, either online or your favorite one around the corner. Pause, breathe, choose, become the CEO of your well-being. Check that out if you are of interest of this and want to really put some effort and prioritization on this in the year ahead. So my final question for you today is this, Naz, and thanks again for your time. Someone somewhere is listening to us right now, and she is beyond burnt out. She's broken. She has suffered and endured through a year of homeschooling, keeping her business alive, keeping herself alive, and barely scraping by. So what's one thing you could just whisper into her ear right now to encourage her right now in this moment?
I would say pause, take a deep breath, and choose one thing you want to do for yourself. Just one thing, and do that one thing and start small. And then continue whenever you have those moments, just pause, breathe, and choose something that's good for yourself.
Good advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was wonderful to be here.